This is Fort Columbia, sitting above the Columbia River near Chinook, Washington. At first glance, it feels like a quiet state park with a great view. But this place was built for a very specific reason, to help guard the entrance to the Columbia River. The battery you're looking at here is Battery Ord. These concrete walls once held disappearing guns that could rise up, fire, and then drop back down behind cover while the crew reloaded. Walking inside Battery Ord gives you a much better feel for what this place actually was. From the outside, it almost blends into the hillside. But once you're inside, you start seeing the rooms, passageways, and heavy concrete construction that supported the gun battery. Fort Columbia was part of the coastal defense system at the mouth of the Columbia River. Battery Ord was the first major battery here, and by 1900, Fort Columbia had multiple artillery pieces watching over the river. The idea was simple. If enemy ships tried to enter the Columbia, these forts could help stop them before they got inland. What's interesting is these batteries were not built like the old stone forts you might picture. By this time, coastal defenses had changed. The guns and crews were protected by concrete, earth, and the shape of the hillside. That's why, from the water, much of this would have been hard to see. As we walked through the lower level, you could still get a sense of how much support went into operating these guns, storage rooms, crew spaces, and all the behind-scenes areas needed to keep the battery working. At the end of this section, the stairs lead up towards the top of Battery Ord, but that area is blocked off now, so we stayed on the open public side. A short walk from Battery Ord brings you to one of the guns on display at Battery 246. These are not the original Battery Ord guns. The two 6-inch guns now at Battery 246 came from a former military base in Newfoundland and were brought here to help show what a working coastal battery site would have looked like. Battery 246 was a World War II era battery, but the war ended before it was fully completed for its original purpose. From below the battery, you can look up and see how the fort was laid out into the hillside. The gun batteries were only one part of the story. Above them are the buildings where the soldiers work, ate, and lived. Inside the barracks, the story shifts from defensive to daily life. This display gives you an idea how the dining area may have looked, with the tables set for meals and bunks nearby showing how soldiers lived while stationed here. Fort Columbia was fully garrisoned in 1903. And life here was not always dramatic. There were inspections, drills, target practice, classes, and plenty of routine work that kept the fort running. The mess sergeant's office and kitchen helped show the everyday side of the fort, because even at a military post, somebody has to manage the meals, supplies, and the basic rhythm of daily life. Next, we head into the commanding officer's house. This part of Fort Columbia feels completely different from the batteries and the barracks. The house is set up with period-style furnishings to help show what life may have looked like for the people who lived here. Upstairs, you move through the family spaces, the commander's room, the children's room, and a guest room, and the maid's room at the end of the hall. It is a reminder that Fort Columbia was not only a military installation. For some families, this was also home. Downstairs, the study gives the house a more personal feeling. After walking through the concrete batteries and military spaces, this room feels much quieter and more like a home. The kitchen shows how the house changed over time. Fort Columbia was active through different periods, including World War II, and parts of the site were updated as needs changed. This room gives you a look at how the home continued to be used beyond its earliest years. The dining room brings the house back to the social side of the fort. Officers and their families did not just live here. They hosted, they gathered, and carried on everyday routines while the fort continued its military role above the Columbia River. It's easy to focus on the guns and the batteries, but rooms like this show the human side of the place. The parlor was one of the last rooms we walked through, and it felt like a good place to end this visit. Fort Columbia is not a huge stop, but it has a lot packed into it. River views, old batteries, barracks, artillery, and a look at the people who lived and worked here. If you're already near Astoria or the mouth of the Columbia River, this is absolutely worth adding to the trip. Thanks for riding along with us.